myself.
You're listening to the uMentor talk show, now available on the Emoji app. I'm your host, Fatima Al Sayed, and on this weekly talk show, we invite people and experts to take us through their journeys as professionals in their fields. This show is actually a crossover between the uMentor talk show and the teen edition, and we welcome Sister Asil Samhat. Assalamu alaikum, Asil. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Before we get into our show, we wanted to let you know that you can ask our speakers questions about their career journeys on the Emoji app. Just click the Inspire tab in the Emoji app. On today's show, we welcome Asil Samhat. Asil is currently a student at McMaster University studying social sciences. She is planning to pursue a double major in political science and social work. She also has a deep love for reading and writing, literature and poetry, and loves photography. She believes everyone needs an outlet, and for her, poetry and photography allow her to express her ideas and thoughts in a creative manner that she can share with the world. She also strongly believes in giving back to our communities through volunteer initiatives, as well as identifying and improving issues that can help better our communities and to become a place in which everyone thrives. We're very happy to have you on the show, Asil. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on here with us today and for, inspiring us through these little things that you do in your daily life.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start off by telling me a little bit about your field of study.
So I'm currently a first-year student at McMaster for social sciences, and although I don't know exactly what I want to do, I'm still kind of in the process of discovering. I've really been fond of like social work and Poli-Sci and sociology, just everything to do with like people and policy. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you're looking to go into something that has more to do with the one-on-one contact with people within this field.
Yes,
Yeah.
precisely.
So what inspired you to get into Poli-Sci?
Well, like in high school, like you're always like forced to take like all these science and math courses. Like I never really knew what I liked in high school. But then I took a few social science classes and realized that I really like that kind of the environment, and I would like love to work in the government, not necessarily as a lawyer. So that's kind of like it's like kind of like slowly like discovering what I like more and more.
Very interesting. So what's your goal within this field? What do you plan to change or do? Everyone who gets into these different fields has that kind of like, secret goal that they want to achieve.
My secret goal is to like work with like Islamic communities and like try to like address like unspoken issues and just improve like the overall environment, as well as like to be there for people, you know?
What
Like
kinds
if
of
I do,
unspoken? Sorry, yeah.
sorry, wait, can you repeat the question?
I was going to say, what kind of unspoken issues? You mentioned unspoken issues. What can you be more specific?
Yeah, like stigma against mental health, different, I feel like it's not okay to not be okay. Like you have to put on a brave face, and no one really addresses the issues of mental health, and there's a lot of stigma like surrounding that it's just like a lack of faith or a lack of deen, when in reality there's a lot more to like that. There's a lot more to explore there, more than just deen.
Especially within our Muslim communities, which is an
Yes.
extremely important issue to raise. And I hope that you reach that point where you are able to really delve in deep into these issues and let us know why this is happening.
Thank you.
So why did you choose McMaster when you were in the process of choosing? I know it's very hard for students nowadays to, go through that application process with COVID. It's added on extra difficulty. So at the time, why did you choose this university? And do you have tips for people who are trying to choose now?
For me, so when I was applying, I applied to social science program at Western University of Toronto and McMaster, and I got into all of them. But for me, like I kind of like looked into each program, and for me, like they were all the same. Like they were all very great programs, and however, with McMaster, I got to stay home, and the commute would be a lot shorter. So for me, it was just like all the programs were the same. Like it was a really great program and it was close to home, so it was like a double win almost.
Yeah.
And like my advice for anyone would be like to apply to the program they believe will like best enable them to pursue what they want. And to like look at it objectively, like are you willing to live on residence? Are you like can you commute very far? Like to take everything into consideration because like your environment will definitely affect you as well.
And that's important to say. Your environment will affect you because,
Yeah.
the environment that we live in as Muslims differs from that environment that you live in as a resident, within a residency. So that's an important issue to raise. Are you able to go to campus at all right now during COVID?
I did go once, but like almost everything was closed. I think it was
Hmm.
only like the student center that was open. And honestly, it was a little sad to see campus so empty and like
Yeah.
like I think I saw like 5 people there. But I mean you can go, but like there's nothing there.
Mm. That's interesting. It reminds me of when I went to the mall just last weekend. You go there, you can go, but there's nothing there. Like
Yeah.
no people around you at all. And I know that you work part-time, correct?
Yes.
So where are you working currently?
I currently work at Starbucks as a barista.
Hmm. Was it hard at the beginning? Did you stop work at all for because of COVID, or did you just continue?
I just started at Starbucks. I'm still in training.
Hmm.
I already had a job when COVID started. I was
Hmm.
working at a company called Urban Behavior. Like it was a clothing store.
Hmm.
Um, and we took a break, but then they called us asking if we wanted to go back, and I said yes because um I was sitting home doing nothing, and I was like,
Yeah.
I know I would be safe. I would be taking precautions, so I
Hmm.
went back. Um, so it makes work a little more difficult, just like with like being careful, the screening, and now I work with food, so we have to be extra careful.
Hmm.
Um, but so far it's all been pretty good.
Yeah. And how do you juggle part-time work and your schoolwork and life in general?
I find that like having like a planner or a journal or just writing what you have to do down and then kind of like making a plan for yourself. Okay, like I have 7 days like this week, like every week, but like what do I want to do every single day? Like what can I do? What do I like what shifts do I have? Kind of um like planning ahead just to kind of like so that you don't have any surprises and you're able to get everything done in time
Hmm.
because it can be a lot sometimes. Like you can have assignments due the same days where you have a really long shift, but as long as like you plan ahead and like you like make a note to yourself of like what you need to like get done within each day, like
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a problem.
So what do you do to take a break from everything if when it does get difficult or it does get, that schedule gets really, really full?
Well, I need a break right now, to be honest. Um, I like um I like to go out with my friends or like make plans to with my family. Just kind of go out and like spend time with others because I feel like it can be very isolating to like go from work where you're having interactions but they're very minimal. Like it's very like businessy and like you're isolated like in your room like doing all your schoolwork. So
Hmm.
just like having that connection with others is very important. Um or like I like to just spend that time being creative, like
Yeah.
writing, like reading, just taking advantage of that time and just like doing like if I'm tired, then I'm gonna do something that's like um like by myself. But if I have a lot of energy and I wanna like I'm in the mood to explore, I'll go out.
And we have a couple questions from the Inspire app that I mentioned earlier. We have, I think, around 2 questions that came in. So we're going to pull up the first one right now. This question is, how can someone find community service activities to participate in? And this question is because you, in your bio, mentioned that you do a lot of community service activities. So can you tell us what these activities are and answer this question right after?
So currently, like during Corona, I haven't been doing much because like I've been part of MACE, so McMaster's Islamic Society.
Hmm.
But I haven't been doing much other than that. But when I was in high school, I think I was doing like 5 clubs. I was doing scouts, and then I tried to help out in my community.
Hmm.
Um, honestly, like if you're present in these environments, like opportunities will present themselves. Like you'll
Hmm.
hear of something like if you go to an event like the people running that event like you'll see them and then you can approach them or sometimes like if you're on social media and you notice like you were at an event and like you see who's planning the event. Like they may, if you follow them, they may post different like requests like for like position. So
Mhm.
it's all about kind of like keeping your eyes open and just being present, because like if you're like sitting down, like if you're at your home all day and you're not like looking for anything, like an opportunity won't present themselves. Like you actually have to go out and like into the world and try to like seek it out yourself.
Yeah.
And like once you start to look, like you'll always find something. Like I don't believe you can ever come up empty-handed from that.
Mhm. And when you do this work, like what was the most thing that you felt you wanted to get into and really help out in?
Can you rephrase that?
Oh, I was saying, like,
That's
what was the
okay.
thing that you really felt that you were like inspired to get into even more and motivated to help out in, between scouts and youth and those different things?
Actually, in high school, I was
Mhm.
part of a chaplaincy group. I went to a Catholic high school, so it was kind of like the group that ran all the masses. I was very inspired to work with them because I don't know anything about Catholicism going into school,
Mhm.
and I feel like there's like such a stigma, like oh, like you're a Muslim, like you're only allowed to help out with these things, but in reality, like you can learn so much from other people, and like you can be inspired by different like by your differences. And for me, that was really like I was really happy to like work alongside them when I got to meet a lot of interesting people through that. um like I even went to a convention for nuns. It was the most like interesting thing. They're lovely people. And currently I'm part of like the MACE committee
Mhm.
at McMaster, and it's really been motivating me because it kind of keeps me like, because like we're always supposed to be like learning.
Mhm.
It kind of gives me like an excuse to always be learning about like different like Islamic events and different Islamic like imams and just like different holidays, and just
Mhm.
like looking into them, because before that like you would hear about them, but now that I'm part of I'm part of the advertising, that I have to actually go look for information to post out there. Like it's been helping me like grow my own knowledge and like
Mhm.
my own faith in a way.
How can someone who, let's say, isn't part of that but wants to grow their knowledge and faith, what advice do you give on that? Is there any sites that you suggest they visit? Is there anything that they can get into?
Um, there's like a lot of like, if you like read, I find like okay, find like your hobby, like what you like to do, whether you like to watch videos, whether you like to read, whether you like to write, or
Mhm.
even like if you just like really love social media,
Yeah.
use that to learn. Like
Okay.
for instance, if you're on social media a lot, like no judgment, I'm guilty of myself. Like follow these pages and like by yourself you'll find yourself learning, like they'll come up more and more, and then like it's an algorithm, right? The more you seek, the more like it'll give you, like you'll find more posts about that.
Mhm.
Follow like different scholars that will give out information. If you like to read, like seek out books that like that dabble in like what you want to learn in, like different, like whether it's a hadith or whether it's story like Islamic stories, like kind of like finding what you love and using it. Like I find like I think a lot, it gives everyone a gift, and if you can utilize that to expand your relationship with him, it's amazing.
That's awesome. That's really, really, I haven't heard that kind of advice before. Really put it in front of you all the time and make it present. That's beautiful advice.
Thank you.
You mentioned photography, writing, and poetry and reading.
Yes.
So I'm gonna hone in on photography and poetry.
Okay.
So what inspired you to hold a camera when you were younger?
Honestly, I tried art. Like I tried sitting down and drawing, but I don't have the patience for that. So I really like the photography is that like you have a creative vision,
Mhm.
you try to set it up, you take a picture, and then you can move on. Like it's very quick, but it's also like allows you to kind of like look for like different like beauties in the world, different like capture different moments. And I really like that it was very fast, and like you had to be quick with it. Like, okay, I see this, I like it. You know what I mean? So I asked for a camera, and to my surprise, my parents got it for me. Because usually they say no. They're like, "Oh, are you sure you need this?" But like, no, this is a great thing. Like, and then I got into like different clubs at school. I got
Mhm.
into the yearbook committee. I did a lot of pictures for events, so that way, kind of, I like was able to learn from that. And I also took a few classes at school. Um, and then just slowly, like, I got more comfortable using it, I guess.
Mhm. And in terms of poetry, I know that you post some of your poems on Instagram and You've gotten a lot of love on them. Can you tell me what inspires your poetry and how you started?
I think I went to I think they're called prayer breakfast, like they host them in Hamilton, and like I was invited through a club, and I remember listening to a spoken word. Well, I think I was grade 7 at that time.
Oh wow.
And I remember just how I felt listening to her. Like, I'm like, this is beautiful. Like, I want to do what she's doing. So
Hmm.
I went to school. I didn't even wait to go home. I went back to school and I grabbed like the back of like my math page and just started writing like what I was feeling. And then I actually remember the poem to this day.
You want to tell
And
us?
okay, not word by word, but it was
Okay.
about roses and like it was like why roses have thorns, and I was comparing it to like the world like adversaries. I don't know
Hmm.
why I was thinking about this when I was 12 years old, but there I was. So kind of slowly, and I just fell in love with it even more, just like
Hmm.
writing and like using different like metaphors, and like I like to make comparisons with nature and like
Hmm.
just bringing it into writing. And I just felt like when I was like happy, I love to go out and like express that with everyone I love. But when I felt more sad or like more somber, I like to sit down with my thoughts and like get it on paper.
Hmm.
Like it just kind of like became my outlet that way.
One question that comes to mind, I know that you've recently experienced a loss, and so my condolences to you, but
Thank you.
does poetry and writing really help for you to get, through that loss and to
Um,
be able to cope with it? Did you find that like as a good coping mechanism?
well, actually, I'm gonna like give a little story and then go
Yeah,
into
go
it.
ahead. Go ahead.
I remember I was with my cousins. We were given, so my grandpa passed away on the 31st this year,
Hmm.
of October. So I remember like the day of that it happened, I was like just sitting with my cousins, and all of a sudden I like felt like a wave of sadness. Well, all I could do was think about my grandpa, and then
Hmm.
I wrote like I was writing about him, and then later that day he passed away, and
Wow.
I honestly felt like he was reaching out to me that way. You know what I mean? And then after that, like yes, I found that it really does help kind of like express it and like get it into the world,
Hmm.
kind of like when I posted on when I like posted like for people to read the Fatiha, I used like my poetry to do that. Like um
That's amazing.
and just me myself, like it just really helped me kind of express how I was feeling because I've never been through loss before this, and it definitely was like it was very helpful.
What does loss teach you at such a young age? I know this is like something that people don't usually talk about, but it's an important issue to raise, and this is part of your experience. So, what did you feel that loss taught you?
Um, when you go through anything else in life, whether like you fail a test, you have a fight with a friend, like anything, like there's always something to look forward to. Like, you know
Hmm.
what? I did bad. It can get better. I fought. I can apologize. But what was really hard for me was like, okay, like that's it. Like there's no more going forth. And like for me, I've never experienced that where because like every day, like the journey always continues. But for me, um, it's not so much like when like I can say like yeah he passed away, but when I go and I start talking about like how he used to be, like that's when I get really when I
Hmm.
feel it because I'm like how was that gone? So for me, it taught me just to really like I know we hear it all the time, but be grateful for everything in your life right now and just to like hold on to the moment as much as you can and just to thank Allah like as much as you can for everything because realistically speaking, he can take it away anytime he wants.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that he's not merciful and he's like no if any God gives you what you need in your life, but kind of just remembering that this life is temporary and that what you do does matter for your akhirah. Like that's what it reminded me.
So, on that note, everyone is going through a different type of loss during COVID. So,
Yeah.
what are the most like pressing social issues going on during the time of COVID right now, in your opinion?
In my opinion, like
Hmm.
in regards to like COVID, like you really see like the response in terms of like economic status, how like the people, like the poor members of society are the ones who are really feeling the loss, and it kind of makes you think um, like they're like what they've been going through has not like has always been like it's always been there, but with COVID,
Hmm.
it's really highlighted like those issues and those areas of growth that our governments can really focus on, but they don't because they will always prioritize money as much as they say that they're for the people. Um, in my opinion anyways. So
Yeah.
I think kind of like I think it kind of reminds you to always give and to be very charitable because um those people are suffering like always, and when it comes to like big events like this, they're the ones losing their jobs, their homes.
Mhm.
They're the ones who have had the biggest numbers like rates of COVID in their communities, like especially like indigenous and black poor communities. So
Mhm.
just kind of like remembering that.
And this also inspires you within your career. You mentioned policy and change.
Mhm.
What, like, what part of social work can you get into that um, delves into policy making?
um To be honest, I'm still not very sure myself because this is
Mhm.
only like a recent discovery of mine that I wanted to pursue this because
Yeah.
before that it was just law. But then I realized like when I took my social work class in university, I didn't really know I didn't know much about it because
Mhm.
there's always like a stigma like, oh, social workers, like they don't do much, they're not taking care
Mhm.
of like kids, like they get kids thrown out of homes or like they
Mhm.
don't take care of kids in like the foster system. But in reality it's much broader than that and
And more
encompasses so
complex.
much more. It really is.
Mhm.
So for me, like in terms of policy, like you are able to work with communities, societies, governments, um, and I even though I'm currently not sure like what like I want to do, I know that I want to make a difference. And like I
Mhm.
know that's like such like a bad answer. Like
No,
you
no.
can say that for any career, but
Yeah.
um, that's like where I'm at right now.
But that's amazing because you are going into a career that inspires you. And you were in law before. You wanted to get into law.
Yeah.
So what? Okay, so this is the question here. You
Okay.
were going to get into law, and then you decided, I'm going to change and go into this instead.
Hmm.
Was that a hard decision to make in that transition? If someone is going through this, let's say they're going into medical school or they're going into a
Yeah.
different career and then they get a course and they think, wow, I really like this and it's interesting. Should they jump on that or should they just continue with what they're doing?
I say that um I'm lucky that I'm like ever since I was little, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? Like, I need to
Mm,
figure this out. Like, I don't want to waste my time. And it was very annoying because I was like in grade 7 saying I wanted to do this, and everyone's like, no, like that's not realistic. I'm like, okay, like I need a new plan now.
mm,
So I've always been like that. But my brother actually like he's in grade 12 and he's still like only now figuring out what he wants to do. And for him, he's he was really stressed about that. So for me, like my advice to him and to anyone else like going through that is that first of all, like you can't wait, like you can't just be passive and wait to find out what you like. Like you
mm,
actually have to kind of put an effort, okay, like and think like between you and yourself, like what do you like, what don't you like. Even starting with like what don't you like that's really helpful. Like for me, I don't like math. um I'm okay with science, but it's not very fun for me. Kind of like narrowing down your options and then just keep exploring. And even if you find that you like something completely out of your field, if you feel a calling for that, then you shouldn't ignore it. And like that's not to say that you have to like leave everything and go to that calling, but kind of like looking into anything
there's
because
different options, I think, in
um
university.
pardon?
I was saying there's different options in university for
Oh,
different like double
100%.
majors or going to a minor.
Yeah.
So I think that also helps people a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Like it's never like you have to only one thing to do. Um like you're saying you can combine a major, you can do like anything that satisfies like what you want to do. Like don't let anyone else be like guiding you towards what you want to do, because
Yeah,
in the end you know yourself more and you know what your strengths and weaknesses are more than anyone else.
yeah, that's very true. Um, So going back to your poetry a little bit, have you spoken in public events? Are you planning on taking this further? What do you plan on doing with it?
I have spoken at a few,
Mhm.
but I am very nervous because I like to write shorter poems, so to speak, like I have to kind of like I can write a slam poem, but it's harder for me to write because like what I usually do is just like I have a feeling and then I write it down in like terms of like poetry.
Yeah.
As much as I do love them and like it inspires me, it's something that I have to work on. But in terms of like my future goals, I plan on writing a book.
Mhm.
And like of course getting more into like public speaking and like slam poetry. But that's like something that I'm currently working on.
That's really good. For someone who's very shy, I can say it's a hard step to take. So, what do you think is going to be the driving factor that pushes you over the line and makes you really want to do this or take that step forward?
Can you clarify?
So in terms of like, when you think about speaking at a public event, I know a lot of people get really nervous. And,
Yeah.
for someone who's saying, I really do want to do this, what's the thing that's going to push you over that line and make you really start that?
So for me, it's less like, oh, I don't like talking in front of people. It's more so like I'm nervous of what they think. Like I'm
Mm,
always like talking to like I always like if anything, I like to be like pushed out of my comfort zone. Like I don't like to be kind of like in the same group. I like to go out and meet new people, which is kind of like why I went into social sciences as well, like going back because of like love for people. So I think that like remembering that um like the worst that's gonna happen is that you're gonna fail, and even if you fail, you're still learning, and then just keep doing it, and just like knowing like kind of like having like a vision for yourself, like okay, like this is like what I see myself doing, and then working towards that. And even like I keep saying it, but even if you fail, like that's not like as long as you don't give up, like you're still succeeding, in my opinion.
Each failure is like a step closer to success, as they say. um, we have actually one more question from the Inspire app. We'll pull that up right now for people to be able to read with us. So, what inspires you to pursue social work? I know you spoke about this a little bit, but if you can answer this question in terms of, was there any single moment that inspired you?
Um, so when I was in elementary, like I was like bullied a little bit, and I remember telling my teachers, but I didn't really do anything about it. And I feel like okay, what I went through wasn't like that bad. Like it's normal, like kids make fun of other kids, but I really want to like look after the overlooked in society. I always wanted to be there for someone,
Mhm,
and I wanted to make a change in like their lives, whether it's on like a community based, or like whether it's on like a personal like one-on-one experience.
mhm,
And just kind of like that like love and desire to help others is really like what's pushing me towards that right now.
yeah. Um, we have a little more time, but I want to get into a little bit on your final pieces of advice for our listeners.
Okay.
What's your advice that you want people to take away from today's show?
My advice is just like to never give up and to continuously like keep working towards your goal.
Mhm,
Like whether that's in your school, whether it's like a talent or a hobby, like just to keep like working, like kind of like imagine for yourself like what I want to be, whether that's like, oh, I want to be more religious, I want to be better at writing, I want to be a doctor, like just envision that and just keep working towards it, and like not to give up, you know? Like you're gonna have days where you don't where you feel like you don't do anything, that's fine. You're gonna have days where you're very stressed out, and that's fine, but just to kind of to keep at it
mhm.
until like you reach your goal. Like, and if not, then that's not what Allah wants for you, and then just to kind of like still try to work towards other goals.
That's interesting what you said. It's not what Allah wants for you. I think a lot of times we try to push things, and sometimes it's not meant for us at that time.
Yeah.
you know? And then later on in life, it sort of plays itself together and starts building up. A lot of times, like for you, for example, you do a lot of different extracurriculars, between poetry and photography, volunteering and working in school. It's like you look at it at the bigger picture and you're like, what am I doing? Like,
Honestly, I don't feel like I'm that busy. Like I feel
mhm.
like it seems like a lot, but I'm so used to being busy that it doesn't overwhelm me. I'm like, yeah, like you know what I mean?
Mhm. But see, each one of these things will later on, as we've seen, like during the show on previous shows, we see that, all of the professionals have had like little moments in their lives that they were inspired by that led them to something different. So it's an honor to have, someone who's young, who's still going through this process and learning to inspire others as well, in order to pursue things that are different and that are interesting for them. What's next for Asil?
Um, well, currently I have a few essays and tests to worry about, but
Yeah.
after that, I guess I'm just gonna keep like working towards social work, and even if that's not for me, to kind of still keep my options open in
Mhm,
terms of like school and in terms of like my hobbies, just to kind of like work on them more. I know I'm really bad with posting because but I really want to get into a habit of writing and like sharing, and like in terms of like photography, like going out more. Like I just got my license. I'm like, okay, like now you don't have an excuse for why you can't go out and take pictures, you know?
mhm. Thank you so much, Asil, for your Amazing advice today, for sharing your experiences and for giving us a little look into your heart as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You were just listening to the uMentor Talk Show. If you missed this or future shows, you can always hear the replay on the uMentor website under prior talk shows. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to our iTunes or SoundCloud podcasts so you never miss another show. Please tune in every week on YouTube to hear all of our future shows. And don't forget to ask questions to our speakers through the Inspire platform on the Emoja app. Make sure to tune in next week at 3 p.m. to hear from our next guest.